44. Over a P-51 Mustang painted on its nose climbs the pilot inside every military regulation, and that same football jersey. He's about to do something that would get killed. He turns off his radio with his squadron. No calls to an entire formation of Germans. This was nothing new for Ralph Kidd, a 3-year-old farm boy from Missouri in the Army Air Forces since the Defenders called him reckless, easy. But in just knocking Maverick would become the Death Fighter Group. Aircraft in the air and to sound. He earned the distinction 6 times over. All Defenders told him to do. Pilot's refusal to follow orders. By 1943, the Allied bombing campaign over Europe was in crisis. American B-17 bombers were being shot down at catastrophic rates. On some missions, 1 in 4 bombers never came home. The problem was simple. The bombers had to fly deep into Germany to hit their targets, but their fighter escorts could only fly so far before running out of fuel. When the fighters turned back, German interceptors tore the bombers apart. The Luftwaffe knew exactly when the American fighters would leave. They waited, and then they attacked. The Army Air Forces needed a new fighter, one that could fly all the way to Berlin and back, one that could stay with the bombers no matter how far they went. In late 1943, that fighter arrived, the P-51 Mustang. With drop tanks extending its range, the Mustang could escort bombers anywhere in Europe. But having the right plane wasn't enough. The Army needed pilots who could outfly the experienced German aces, pilots who could think differently, fight differently. What they got instead was a 22-year-old farm boy who showed up to his first briefing wearing a bright orange and blue football jersey. Ralph Hofer had been rejected by the Army Air Forces twice before enlisting in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He taught himself to fly in rickety trainers. He crashed more than once. His instructors called him undisciplined. When the 4th Fighter Group at Debden, England received their new pilot in September 1943, they didn't know what to make of him. He had long hair, a perpetual grin, and absolutely no respect for military protocol. Colonel Don Blakesley, the group commander, took one look at Hofer and knew he had a problem. From his first day at Debden, Ralph Hofer did everything wrong. He refused to cut his hair. It grew into a chestnut mane that no regulation helmet could contain. He wore that orange and blue football jersey under his flight suit on every mission, the number 78 from his high school days in Missouri, and he named his P-51 Mustang Salem Representative after his tiny hometown, a farm boy's plane in a war of industrial giants. But Hofer's worst offense was his radio discipline, or complete lack of it. Fighter tactics in 1943 depended on coordination. Pilots called out enemy positions. They warned each other of attacks. They followed their flight leaders. The radio was everything. Hofer ignored it. When he spotted an enemy aircraft, he went after it. No calls, no warnings, no permission. He simply broke formation and attacked. His commanders screamed at him over the radio. He didn't answer. After missions, Colonel Blakesley would confront him. The conversations were legendary. Blakesley would demand to know why Hofer had abandoned his wingman, why he'd gone off alone, why he'd violated every standing order. Hofer would just smile. "I got one, didn't I?" The other pilots thought he was insane. Radio silence meant no one could help him if he got into trouble. No one would know where he was. If he went down alone. But Hofer had figured something out that his commanders hadn't. The Germans were listening to their radio chatter. Every call gave away their position, their intentions, their numbers. Radio silence made him invisible, and invisible meant deadly. On his very first combat mission in October 1943, Hofer shot down a German Bf-109. He was still flying a P-47 Thunderbolt. He hadn't even learned the area yet. The other pilots were stunned. Some flew dozens of missions before scoring their first victory. Hofer did it on day 1. When the group transitioned to P-51 Mustangs in early 1944, Hofer's already aggressive tactics became even more effective. The Mustang was fast, maneuverable, and had the range to hunt deep into enemy territory. Hofer didn't just wait for enemy fighters to come to him. He went looking for them. He developed what his fellow pilots called the Kid Hofer Special. While the rest of the squadron stayed with the bombers, Hofer would dive away, find a German airfield, and strafe everything on the ground. Parked aircraft, fuel trucks, anti-aircraft positions. Then he'd climb back up and rejoin the formation as if nothing had happened. By March 1944, Hofer had shot down so many aircraft that he became the first flight officer in the entire Army Air Forces to become an ace. 5 victories in the air. But that was just the beginning. Hofer wasn't satisfied with air-to-air combat. He wanted to hit the Germans where they couldn't fight back, on the ground. His strafing runs became legendary. He would come in so low that his propeller nearly touched the grass. German flak gunners couldn't track him fast enough. By the time they swung their guns around, he was already climbing away. 14 confirmed aircraft destroyed on the ground, as deadly as his aerial victories. By the summer of 1944, Ralph "Kid" Hofer had 15 confirmed aerial victories. He was one of the top aces in the entire 8th Air Force. The Distinguished Flying Cross hung from his chest 6 times over. And he was still breaking every rule in the book. June 1944 brought the D-Day invasion. The 4th Fighter Group flew mission after mission, strafing German positions, attacking convoys, protecting the beachheads. Hofer was everywhere. He seemed to be able to find enemy aircraft when no one else could. His secret was simple. While other pilots flew predictable patterns, Hofer improvised. He used cloud cover. He came out of the sun. He attacked from angles the Germans didn't expect. And he never, ever announced his presence on the radio. July 2nd, 1944. The 4th Fighter Group was escorting bombers over Hungary when they spotted a formation of 20-plus Messerschmitt 109s above them. The Germans were waiting to pounce on the bombers. Standard procedure called for the fighters to climb slowly in formation, keeping the bombers protected. Coordinate the attack, call out positions. Hofer broke away immediately. His Mustang, Salem representative, climbed hard toward the German formation. No radio calls, no coordination. Just a lone P-51 against 20 enemy fighters. The Germans didn't see him coming. They were focused on the bombers below. Hofer tore into their formation from an unexpected angle, guns blazing. It should have been suicide, 1 against 20. But Hofer had done this before. He knew how to use confusion as a weapon. Strike fast. Don't let them organize. Keep moving. The battle scattered across the sky. Hofer twisted and dove, trading altitude for speed, then climbing again to attack. The Germans couldn't coordinate their response. They didn't know where he was coming from next. Then his luck ran out. After the aerial engagement, Hofer did what he always did. He dove down to find targets on the ground. The German airfield at Mostar Sud in Yugoslavia lay beneath him. Parked aircraft lined the runway. Perfect targets. Hofer came in low, dangerously low. His guns tore into the parked planes, setting them ablaze one after another. But this time, the German flak crews were ready. The 4th Battery of Flak Regiment 9, a veteran unit from the Legion Condor, tracked his approach. 20mm anti-aircraft fire reached up toward his Mustang. At least one round found its mark. Salem representative shuddered. Something vital had been hit. The Mustang that had carried Hofer through dozens of impossible missions was dying. No one saw exactly what happened next. Hofer was alone. No wingman, no radio contact. Just as he had always flown. His squadron waited. They listened for his voice on the radio. Nothing. They scanned the sky for his distinctive aircraft with the football number on the nose. Nothing. Ralph "Kid" Hofer, the farm boy from Missouri who became one of the deadliest aces in the European theater, was gone. He was 23 years old. For years, no one knew exactly where he had fallen. His body was not recovered until long after the war. Eventually, he was buried alongside other fallen airmen at Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in St. Louis. His final resting place was just a few hundred miles from the small farm where he had grown up dreaming of flight. Ralph Hofer flew with the 4th Fighter Group for just 9 months. In that time, he shot down 15 enemy aircraft in aerial combat and destroyed 14 more on the ground. He earned the Distinguished Flying Cross with 6 oak leaf clusters, 3 air medals. The respect of pilots who had initially thought he was crazy. His commanding officers never stopped criticizing his tactics. Colonel Blakesley complained about him until the day Hofer disappeared, but even Blakesley couldn't argue with the results. Hofer proved that sometimes the rules exist to protect average pilots. Exceptional ones make their own rules. His tactics anticipated the fighter doctrine that would emerge decades later. Individual initiative, surprise over coordination, the ability to adapt in seconds rather than following predetermined plans. The 4th Fighter Group would go on to become one of the most decorated units in the 8th Air Force. Many of its pilots became aces, but none of them quite matched the farm boy with the long hair and the football jersey. Today, Ralph "Kid" Hofer is remembered as one of the most unconventional and effective fighter pilots of World War II. A man who broke every rule and won anyway. A maverick who proved that courage and creativity could overcome the odds. He died the way he lived, alone in the sky, following no one's orders but his own, hunting the enemy until his final breath. The kid from Salem, Missouri, who taught the Army Air Forces that sometimes the best way to win a war is to stop playing by the rules.